Hey guys, Torcus here. So in this video, I wanted to talk about Aphelios, the new champion that is coming to Runeterra in this next patch. He was announced quite a few weeks ago at this point, but he is finally going to be released this Wednesday, I believe. So I figured now was the best time for me to dive in and do my analysis on him before he comes out, as well as show you guys some of my Theorycrafts that I've made, and I figured that doing it closer to his release was more timely, given that's closer to when people would actually be doing it. I also wasn't sure if they were going to do more cards in the Aphelios set or whatever, but it seems like, as far as we're aware, we're pretty close to his release now. It seems like it's just going to be him and his champ spell. So these Theorycrafts that I made a few weeks ago now haven't been changed. They are still the same that I initially made, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be any new cards that need to be added to them at this point. So first of all, let's analyze Aphelios a little bit. He's a really interesting card. Obviously in League, he's very complicated. Here, he's kind of just about as complicated as he is in League of Legends. So he is a 3-mana, 3/3 Nightfall card. Makes sense since he is a Lunari. And his Nightfall gives you a Moon Weapon in hand. We're going to look over the Moon Weapons in a second, but when you've played 2 other cards in a round, you create the Phased Moon Weapon in hand if you don't have another one. So basically, you have to play the Moon Weapon first so that you don't have one in hand, right? The Moon Weapons will always give you a choice when you play them, which weapon to phase into. And then you pick which one you would like to be the next weapon you're going to get. And then he will be giving you the phased one, and then that one, you'll play it, you pick the phased one, and it'll cycle, just like it does in League of Legends. Once you have played 4 Moon Weapons or more, he will level up, and then he gains Quick Attack, as well as the +1/+1 stats you'd expect, and from then on, he now also generates a Moon Weapon at the start of every round, and your Moon Weapons cost 1 less. I don't especially believe that the round start thing is going to matter a lot, given that, it's going to matter exactly how this works. See, there's a thing here that I'm not entirely certain. There are a few ways that this can work, and it's hard to tell from the phrasing exactly what it's going to do. The thing that has me caught up is it says when you've played 2 other cards in a round. So let's say that means that it goes, you have 0, then you play a card, you have 1, and then you play that card. One of those cards has to be the Moon Weapon, and then you play the other card, and then you get your Phased Moon Weapon. Then it resets back to 0, right? And you need to do 2 more. That would mean that you have to cycle a lot of cards through in order to be able to get all your Phased Moon Weapons, but there are certain decks that would be able to do that, and once he levels up, that wouldn't be crazy hard to do. The second idea is, and I don't think this is crazy to assume that it might mean this, is that when you've played 2 other cards in a round, then that's it. You've done it for the round, and now you can't do it again this round. You've went 0, 1, 2, and then you max out and you're finished. And then it won't generate more this round. That sounds really bad. I feel like that would feel really bad to play, and I feel like that's not something they would do. So I don't think it's that, but you could interpret it that way. We haven't gotten any explanation as to exactly how he works. So it could work that way. But the best way that it could work is when you've played 2 other cards in a round, you've hit 2, and now you've fulfilled that, and every time you play another other card, you generate Moon Weapon, Moon Weapon, Moon Weapon. Every time you play the new Moon Weapon, you get the next one. That could also work that way. So, because it hasn't been explained to us, it's really a total crapshoot whether it's going to be one of those three options. Like, the main thing is I feel like the Victor Aphelios combo would be really busted if it was the last version where you could just generate, right? So I feel like it's probably going to be the first option where you do have to play 2, then play 2, then play 2 every time. But yeah, if it doesn't work that way, you can literally make an infinite combo with Victor and Aphelios by making your moon weapons cost 1 less from Aphelios and cost 1 less from Victor. I've seen a lot of people discuss that, and it seems like people assume that that's how it works. But obviously there's no way of us knowing whether or not that's true until he comes out, because no one has really went in depth into how exactly he functions. Obviously, by how much I've already talked, Aphelios is a pretty complicated card. But beyond that, we haven't even looked at the moon weapons yet. So let's look at the moon weapons. So here are the moon weapons that you will be able to get from Aphelios, as well as his champ spell. Let's look at his champ spell first, actually. It is Gifts from Beyond. It is 2 mana burst spell that lets you choose a moon weapon to create in hand. So, Aphelios and his champ spell are doing kind of a similar thing. Obviously, this is a one-off, but because it is burst speed, it gives you a lot of flexibility to do whatever you want on your turn. If you're using Aphelios, it's giving you a lot of flexibility as to what you're going to do next turn or any turn after that. But this one, you can literally make the choice that turn and then play it, similar to how you would with Star Chart or the Behold the Infinite. Is that what it's called? I think so. Yeah, whatever those the Celestial card generating spells are, those have a similar impact. And we know how good Zoe is, and how if you can react to what your opponent is doing, play that spell, and then if you need the stun, you can get the stun a large amount of the time. You can get the silence a large amount of the time. The odds are pretty high on anything that you can get. Here, you're literally going to get all 5 choices. You get to pick whichever one you want, and it will let you choose a phase for your Aphelios after, so it'll shift the phase as well. Not that I think that'll be especially important. I think you can normally phase pretty well into stuff. But this, I think, will be very impactful. And now we're going to look at the weapons. So they all have varying degrees of strength. We got Calibrum. They're all also 2 mana slow speed spells. So we got Calibrum, which is deal 3 to a target follower. So dealing 3 to a follower for 2 at slow, it's okay, it's decent. If you need the removal, you need the removal, and it will be good for that reason. Dealing 2 for 2 mana at fast speed is good, so adding 1 more damage and being slow is pretty good. Severum, give an ally +1/+2 in lifesteal this round. It's not the best thing when you're on defense, but it can sometimes stop your opponent from attacking into you, perhaps. But if you are on the offense, then you can put it onto something and potentially keep it alive with the extra health, but definitely get a decent amount of healing if you put it on a mid-sized unit. And in slower decks, that could really work. Gravitum, which stuns an enemy, and if it's a follower, stun it again at the next round start. So you can't double stun a champion, but there are going to be a lot of followers that you want to double stun, and that is a really, really big deal. You can stun them on the turn that they're attacking, and then also on the turn that they're defending, so you don't have a blocker in the way. Really, really sick. Infernum, which gives an ally +2/+1 and Overwhelm. This will sometimes be something you can use to try and push some damage with certain decks. Obviously, all of these are going to be considered when you're making an Aphelios deck, so you can think about units that might need Overwhelm and then you can use this to try and end out games and be a semi-consistent finisher in those kinds of decks. And then the best one, and probably the most important one, is Crescendum, which is summon a 2-cost follower from your deck if it has Nightfall activated. The Nightfall part is not always going to be super important, but the fact that you can pull a 2-cost from your deck is going to be very impactful. It costs 2, and you're getting the 2, so it's effectively, you're paying the normal cost of the unit, but it's a tutor effect, which is a really big deal. And if you have a very narrow number of 2-cost followers, then you can make it be very specific on what it pulls from your deck. So really, really cool one there. So here is a interesting graphic that we can consider, because as you see, they all have phase into Severum or Gravitum, phase Gravitum or Infernum, blah 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 blah. They all phase into specific ones, and the community has gone out of their way to make this graphic for us to visualize exactly how the phasing will work. Once you look at this, you see the pentagon. It's actually entirely possible for you to stay in one triangle and continue to cycle through that triangle over and over as long as you'd like, and they are kind of designed in a way that the triangles do have a kind of archetype to them that really makes a lot of sense. There is a little bit of flexibility in that you can make one deviation and still come back to the same start point. So let me kind of explain that to you. So let's say you're playing a Yasuo deck. So Aphelios and Yasuo are a potential combination you might be interested in, right? People have been talking about that because of the power of Gravitum. So you start with Gravitum, then you want to jump into Crescendum. Obviously, Crescendum is really strong. It also has a lot of power in most of the decks you'll be building with Aphelios and stuff like that. And then you get to either choose Damage to a Follower or Lifesteal this round. Both very useful in a Yasuo-type deck, a slower, more controlling type deck, because you are trying to just slow down your opponent's aggression, deal with each of their followers one at a time. So sometimes you get the 3 damage, sometimes you get the lifesteal. Both of these, both Calibrum and Severum, connect back to Gravitum. So you can do that. However, if you were to go Gravitum into Infernum and then into Crescendum, now it's going to take longer to get back to Gravitum because it's a longer way. So as long as you're crossing the pentagon at least once, it will only take you 2 jumps to get back to where you started. You will always have a triangle. And that's really significant. We don't know how long you'll be able to keep Aphelios alive, but in some matchups, it's definitely going to be hard for your opponent to kill it. Some decks literally don't have any way to remove anything. They kind of just rely on their own game plan to just be killing off your opponent, and if they aren't killing you fast enough, then maybe you're just going off with this kind of stuff. If they don't have enough interactivity to kill your Aphelios, he might just keep cycling through these cycles, and once he levels up, it is going to be very cheap for him to do so. So yeah, so if you have this in mind, it's actually very easy for you to consistently get what you want out of your weapon choices. It obviously, you can't get it immediately. You have to make a couple jumps to get back to where you started. But normally it will make a lot of sense. Like you see, like Gravitum, Infernum, and Calibrum make like a nice triangle, or like Severum and Infernum and Crescendum make a nice triangle. Those are good, like unit-based, tempo-oriented triangle right there. You just pick whatever triangle you want, and you can make one deviation each time if you really want to. So that's going to be a really important thing for if you're going to be playing Aphelios decks. He is a big brain type of champion, and you need to keep this stuff in mind when you're playing him so that you play him to the utmost potential that he can possibly have. So now we're going to look at my Theorycrafted decks that I've made. I have made six decks. Funny thing is, apparently, now I don't want to get too much into this, but apparently this is Out of Cards official 7 hot Theorycrafted decks for Aphelios. They posted some of Swim's lists here and stuff like that, but they also posted Sith Holocron's Nightfall decks. I actually Theorycrafted my decks the day that Aphelios got announced, and I have been saving them for this video, right? However, I discovered that when I looked through this article, these are actually both my lists, card for card, exactly the way I built them. I've since watched his video, which is here, and it's pretty clear from watching it that he has no idea exactly why each card is included, which is because he stole the deck from me, because I have it publicly available on Out of Cards. And, you know, I don't care if people want to play my decks. I'm literally making this video so you guys can play my decks. But I would have appreciated if he gave me some credit, because he's getting some free promotion here that I didn't get. I obviously commented about it in the thing here, and I commented on his video. But, anyways, so we're going to look at the list that I made. So basically, what we have here, we have I made a Diana one, I made a Nocturne one. Both of them are heavy Nightfall lists, obviously. The main thing here is we're going through, we got most of the normal things you'd expect to see from a Nightfall deck. We've got, you know, the Dustbringer, the Solari Soldier, we've got Stygian Onlooker, Diana being the champion that we're going to focus on. She's going to get pumped up a lot because we're assuming that we're going to be triggering a lot of Nightfalls in this kind of deck. I know some people have been running Evershade Stalker lately in Nightfall decks, but this one is mostly here because it works with Crescendum, and Gifts from Beyond will pull it, and Aphelios is going to pull it, and the other one that we're pulling is Shadestalker. So you're always going to be pulling either Evershade Stalker or Lunaria Shadestalker, getting those 2 drops on board. Once you trigger one Evershade Stalker, you will never not have one in hand, basically. So you can, you know, put a lot of pressure on all at once with this kind of thing. I got 1 Hush. I don't know if we might need more Hushes. I made this deck a while back. I just tried to fit in everything I could. I think 1 Hush might be okay, but we also have Moonlight Affliction, which is, you know, doing the same job as Hush, but also potentially stopping their blockers, and that will be a lot of help when you do have these pumped up Dianas. Sometimes you might only have 2 blockers, and the Diana just goes hardcore to the face. And yeah, Stalking Shadows, obviously very important, Pale Cascade. And then we have 2 Atrocities and Cygnus the Moonstalker as our finisher type cards. If you use Cygnus with Diana, hopefully that is all you really need to finish them off. And Atrocity with Diana will also do a ton of damage a lot of the time. You know, if you do Diana and Evershade Stalker on the same turn, you can potentially pump her up a bunch without needing any more cards than just the Evershade Stalker. So pretty easy to do. I obviously don't know how well these are going to perform. This was just my first take on it and everything. But it's pretty similar to the normal Nightfall stuff you'd expect to see. And this is hopefully going to perform pretty well. I am actually more excited, though, about this next one, which is the Nocturne Nightfall version. So this one is a lot similar to the other one in a lot of ways. I couldn't really differentiate too much when I was building it, but we did take off the Atrocities and the Cygnus from the top end, and now we just have Nocturne as our top end. But the biggest difference about this one is Shark Chariot. So the new strategy with this one is you're pulling Shark Chariots and Evershade Stalkers from the Gifts Beyond. We still have the Shade Stalker. I'm not sure if I want to still keep the Shade Stalker in there, just because it does throw off the ephemeral synergy a little bit, and that might be a problem. But I also thought it might be a little bit much to have no 2-drops that you can actually play and have a body on board, because obviously Shark Chariot and Evershade Stalker are both ephemerals that can't block. So if we don't have enough stuff to play on board, we might just die to our opponent's aggression. This one might be a little bit more ambitious because it is relying on a lot of ephemeral stuff here. But the consistency of being able to pull out the Evershade Stalker and the Shark Chariot with Crescendum means that you're most games going to be able to just pop out Shark Chariot every time you want to attack with these Shade Stalkers. And that's a lot of damage. Like, I'm sure you guys know how much damage Shark Chariot can do. We've seen Hecarim and Lucian a lot lately, and that's been a pretty big thing with Plaza and all that. And the main thing, because, you know, a lot of this stuff, a few of these cards already have Fearsome, but the main thing I wanted was that we would be able to, with the Nocturne, give Fearsome to the Shark Chariots, and that could potentially stop them from blocking a lot of damage and stuff like that. So Nocturne being leveled up is probably going to happen very often, and we're also going to be able to push a ton of damage with him around, being able to give Fearsome to everything. Obviously, as you can see so far, these are both Nightfall decks. They normally have pretty low curves. We have huge 2s on here, right? But you're going to see that this is kind of a trend that I ended up having when making Aphelios decks, that they do trend towards the 2 cost. I feel like 2 is extremely important to Aphelios, mainly because it makes it really easy for you to continue the Aphelios, just getting more and more moon weapons and stuff like that. You already want to just fit that stuff into your turn, so having a big curve means that you're not helping your Aphelios along. If he does end up not being able to cycle multiple times a turn, then that might be a reason for you to, you know, increase the curve on a few of these decks a little bit. But I don't think the Nightfall ones are going to change too much on that front. This one is a really weird one. I made this one before Go Hard got nerfed, but it's still a pretty cool meme deck that you can try. I don't expect this one to be good in any shape or form, but the main thing I wanted to do was make a deck where Messenger Sigil could finally get used for something. So the main thing, we're making Messenger Sigil our draw engine. We're going to have a little bit of control to it with the Vengeance and the Withering Wail and whatever. I couldn't really figure out exactly what I needed to have to, like, round out the rest of the deck beyond the fact that I wanted Messenger Sigil and Go Hard in the deck, right? And obviously Aphelios. So we ended up having like a Solari package with the Soldier, we got Sunforger, and Priestess and Leona. So that's hopefully going to keep us in the game. Leona can maybe stun some stuff to keep us going along. We'll cycle through the deck with the messengers that we get from the Sigil, with Crescendum pulling out the messengers. Again, Crescendum is always the best weapon in pretty much all these decks. We're relying on Crescendum being the reason why a lot of this stuff gets really boosted up. And you'll always cycle back to it if you keep your Aphelios alive. And you'll always be able to get it again if you get Gifts from Beyond. So yeah, so we're just cycling through this a bunch. I got tons of card draw in here. We got Pale Cascade, Guiding Touch, Glimpse Beyond, and the Messengers. So you should be able to finish Go Hard pretty quickly, I'd hope. I mean, we don't know how consistent this is actually going to be, but it's a cool idea, I think, and if you want to try it, go ahead, let me know if it ends up working out for you. I would be really happy if it did. So those were all Targon and Shadow Owl's decks. The remaining three, we have Aphelios and Victor, a pretty obvious choice to put these two together. This is probably one of the lists I feel most iffy about because I couldn't really figure out exactly what number of things I wanted for each thing. I'm very indecisive about this kind of stuff. But yeah, so we have, you know, I put Dustbringer in like every one of these lists. We have, you know, Spacey Sketcher, it's generating cards. We got Ballistic Bot, because Ballistic Bot is obviously super important in Victor decks and basically any Piltover deck at this point, really. We got the one Hush. I got Mountain Go, which gives us gems. I got Mentor, which gives us gems. You know, we're getting the gems, we're getting the weapons, and it's kind of a tempo-oriented deck, that kind of a thing. I've got Shards of the Mountain, so we can go off with that once Victor gets leveled up, because I do think it's going to be pretty often that we'll be able to level him up because of the fact that we have Aphelios and all this stuff going on. And yeah, we have Give It All. You know, the numbers of certain things in this deck definitely, I feel like, is the most likely to change if I start trying it out and it needs some tweaking here and there. But I think, like, if the Infinite combo works with Aphelios and Victor, that'd be pretty sweet to be able to just play weapons over and over and over, and then that's like an OTK. And there's no way that they wouldn't change that if that ended up being the thing, but you never know, right? And one of the big things about it is with the power of Augment, you can use the Overwhelm weapon on Ballistic Bot or Victor, and that can be a way to end the game. So that's a pretty cool way to do that too. So there's that one. Then we have Aphelios Yasuo, making use of Gravitum as the stunning card. We have the two 2-drops that Crescendum's going to pull, which is Eye of the Dragon and Fey Blade Twirler, both obvious choices in any Yasuo deck. They're both 2-drops that are in like every Yasuo deck ever anyways. We got the, you know, a Solari Soldier for some early game. I got Spell Thief in here. I think I was more excited about Spell Thief back when I made this deck, so I don't know if Spell Thief would still make it in here. But yeah, we got Deny and Nopify. You always want Deny and Nopify in your decks. I got all the stuns. We got like Steel Tempest, Concussive Palm. I got a couple Yones. I didn't end up running the Infinite Mind Splitters. I decided that Yone might be a little bit better. Generally speaking, you want to be a little bit faster with that kind of stuff. We don't have very many units in here at all, so it really is more of a controlling deck, and you kind of just deal with each of their threats as they come along with the Yasuo and stuff. It might need a little bit of work, like maybe we need some potentially star shaping so we have more of a finisher to it, but for now I think it might do some good just being able to, you know, we deal with all of their threats, and then Yasuo's there and just gets to keep hitting, and Aphelios potentially being protected for a long time with all this denial stuff like Nopify and Hush, and you just keep getting value off of him repeatedly. But yeah, I think it might be really cool to see Aphelios and Yasuo together just because Gravitum is such an interesting idea. You instantly get 2 stuns towards Yasuo's level up. So yeah, that's going to be a cool one to try out. And then this one is Aphelios and Zoe. This one is a Starlit Seer deck. I don't think Starlit Seer is the most crazy card ever, but we have seen a little bit of Starlit Seer being combined with Zoe and Sparklefly in the past. So this is kind of all in on buffing the crap out of Zoe, Shadestalker, and Sparklefly, because they are elusives that can then go face with all this stuff. We're able to use the Crescendum to either pull the Starlit Seer or the elusives after they've been buffed up and stuff. And they are also spells, so every time you play the moon weapons, you're getting more stats onto all of your units in the deck. Hopefully, you end up being able to get the Starlit Seer in your mulligan, and then just getting the stats off really, really hard, and all that kind of a thing. So I don't expect any of these decks are perfect yet. Starlit Seer is not the most consistent card ever. We know Yasuo isn't a card that's been super successful lately. Victor hasn't been super successful lately. So all these things are still up in the air. I think the Nightfall ones are the most likely to work. I think those are definitely going to be cool ones. I was thinking about making more Theorycrafts, but these are the ones that I came up with. And I'll potentially make some more Aphelios decks once he's been released, and we'll check him out more then. But until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did. Comment down below what you think of my decks, and what you think of Aphelios, and what you think his impact on the meta is going to be like. And please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next one.